In part 1, a single prophecy changed everything for two friends. Kofi, the confident one, was told he would become a CEO. He rose quickly, living a life of comfort and believing success was his destiny. Meanwhile, Amaugo, the quiet genius cursed to be a puppet, refused to accept his fate. In the shadows, he toiled away, building a small app called EkoDirect, a tool designed to help the city's forgotten entrepreneurs. We left off as a devastating economic storm began to cripple Lagos. Kofi's world of glamour started to crack, while Amaugo's humble creation was suddenly becoming a lifeline for thousands. Now, in part 2, the storm has arrived in full force. And what happens next will reveal the true meaning of success and power. Part 2. The second round of job cuts at Kofi's company targeted middle managers. The third and final wave hit the top bosses. Then came the news that shocked everyone. The company's foreign owners had declared the Nigerian branch bankrupt. It would shut down immediately. Just like that, the fancy glass office building turned into a graveyard. Everyone was jobless. Kofi, the confident vice president who believed success was his destiny, was suddenly unemployed. The prophecy had come true, but in the worst possible way. He had become a CEO, all right, but now the chief evicted officer. He had sat at the head of a big table, only for it to collapse beneath him. Everything in his world fell apart overnight. The company car was taken back. His expensive apartment was now too costly. The friends who once admired him disappeared. No more invites. No more calls. All he had left were designer suits he couldn't even afford to dry clean. Kofi tried calling people in his network, but they were all struggling too. His charm couldn't save him this time. For the first time he saw the truth. He had built nothing. He had no real skills. His success had come from talk, not action. And now the game was over. He became a shadow of himself, walking the streets of Lagos without purpose. He saw empty shops, stressed faces, and fuel lines. But everywhere he also saw EkoDirect delivery bikes zipping through traffic. Green and white logos painted a picture he couldn't ignore. It was Amaugo's company. The same friend he had once mocked. The same project he had dismissed as a waste of time. Kofi had always thought he was in control. But now, with no job, no power, and no future, he realized something painful. He had been a puppet too. And the system he trusted had finally cut his strings. As the city's economy collapsed, one thing still worked: EkoDirect. From the governor's office to local leaders, everyone started paying attention. Reports came in showing how Amaugo's app was keeping food in markets and small businesses alive. In neighborhoods across Lagos, EkoDirect had quietly become a lifeline. The government formed a special task force to handle the crisis. One name kept coming up: Amaugo. Instead of sending a car to a big company office, they sent a government vehicle to Amaugo's small apartment. When officials knocked on his door, he thought he was in trouble. But they weren't there to shut him down. They were there to ask for his help. They invited him to speak with the most powerful people in the state. Wearing simple clothes, Amaugo walked into the governor's large conference room. Sitting around the big wooden table were top business leaders, bank executives, and government officials. The same kind of people Kofi had spent his whole career trying to impress. But this time they were the ones looking for answers. Amaugo stood in front of them and calmly explained how EkoDirect worked. He didn't try to impress them with big words or fancy slides. He talked about solving real problems, helping real people, and building a system that didn't break when the world did. He wasn't just showing them an app. He was sharing a new way to think about the economy. Everyone in the room listened closely. They weren't just hearing a tech guy, they were hearing a visionary. Someone who had built something real. Something that worked. And in that moment, they saw Amaugo not as a puppet in the system, but as the man who might just save the city. The meeting ended with a surprise. The state government, along with a group of local banks, wanted to invest a huge amount of money into EkoDirect. But they didn't want to buy it or control it. They wanted to help grow it. They wanted EkoDirect to become a public-private utility, the backbone of Lagos's new local economy. and they wanted Amaugo to lead it. They offered him the role of CEO, the title Kofi had once believed was his by destiny. Amaugo was shocked. He looked around the room at all the powerful people now turning to him for leadership. He remembered Nana Ya's prophecy. Maybe she had been right about what would happen, but wrong about how it would happen. Or maybe she had just left room for him to shape his own path. This wasn't a throne he had been given. It was one he had built with his own hands, not for himself but for the city. He accepted the role quietly, without pride or excitement, but with deep purpose. And his first move wasn't to ask about salary or bonuses. Instead, he gave his terms. The small vendors who had supported him from the beginning would get a share in the company. A part of the profits would go toward teaching market traders how to use technology. He wasn't just becoming a CEO. He was accepting a mission. Word spread fast. The quiet data clerk had become the face of hope in a broken city. Amaugo was now seen as a hero, a local innovator who had stepped up when the big names had fallen. He had become the new king of business in Lagos. Not because of a prophecy, not because of luck, but because of hard work, vision, and heart. He had once been called a puppet. Now he was the one pulling the strings, not for control but to lift others up. Kofi heard the news on a small radio he had bought after selling his smartphone. He was now living in a crowded Face-Mavisu apartment, sharing space with 3 strangers, a far cry from his old luxury life in Lekki. Everywhere he turned he heard one name, Amaugo. He saw his old friend's face on the news. Calm, serious, and being praised by the same Governor Kofi had once bragged about knowing. The pain of it was sharp. First, Kofi was angry. He felt robbed. He believed Amaugo had stolen the future that was meant to be his. The CEO title, the respect, the spotlight, it should have been his. But as days passed and his life continued to crumble, the anger faded. What remained was regret. He finally understood. Nana Ya's prophecy wasn't really about who would win or lose. It was about who they were. Amaugo had worked, sacrificed, and stayed true to his vision. Kofi had chased appearances, charm, and shortcuts. When the storm came, one of them had roots. The other had nothing to hold on to. Now humbled, broke, and alone, Kofi saw he had only one path left. He needed help. And there was only one person he could turn to. With shaky hands, he found the public phone number for EkoDirect's new office. He dialed it slowly, his heart beating fast. When the receptionist answered and asked who was calling, Kofi couldn't say his name. His voice was low and tired. Tell him it's an old friend from university," he said. He braced himself for silence, for rejection, or for a polite no. As the hold music played, Kofi sat still, holding the phone like it was his last lifeline, the full weight of his fall pressing down on him. To Kofi's surprise, the call went through. "Hello, Kofi." Amaugo's voice was calm and steady, just like always. There was no anger, no pride, just a trace of surprise. Kofi stumbled through his words. He tried to apologize, but the sentences came out jumbled. In the end, all he could manage was the truth. "I need a job, Amaugo. Anything. I'll sweep floors. I need to work." There was a long pause. Kofi waited, sure he'd be rejected. "Come to the office tomorrow at 9, Amaugo said. "We'll talk." Then the line went dead. The next morning, Kofi put on his last clean suit. It was loose on him now. He took 3 buses to get to the EkoDirect headquarters, a vibrant place full of young staff and quiet purpose. The energy was different from the polished chaos of his old corporate world. He was led to a small glass meeting room. No fancy office, no big desk, just 2 chairs. Amaugo was already there, waiting. He didn't smile. He didn't scowl. He just asked straight and simple, "Why should I hire you, Kofi? You have no experience in logistics, no technical skills. The only thing you've ever built is your personal brand. And right now, that brand is worthless." Kofi felt like the air had been knocked out of him. But he didn't argue. He didn't defend. "You shouldn't," he said quietly. "Not based on my past. But I'm ready to work. I'm ready to learn. I've been wrong about a lot. You were right. I just need a chance to build something real." Amaugo looked at him, his eyes steady, watching closely. Searching for something more than just words. Something real. Amaugo leaned back and studied Kofi for a long moment. He saw the desperation but also something new. Humility. He didn't owe Kofi anything. But Amaugo believed in second chances, in growth. Not just for systems but for people. "All right, Kofi," he said. "There's an opening in our warehouse dispatch unit. Entry level. You'll coordinate riders, manage schedules, make sure deliveries go out on time. It's shift work. Are you interested?" Kofi blinked. A warehouse dispatch role. From vice president to this. Felt like a joke. A year ago he would have scoffed at the idea. But now it felt like a rope thrown to a drowning man. "Yes," he said instantly. "Thank you. I'll take it." His first day was rough. The work was fast, chaotic, and completely unglamorous. He had to learn new software, memorize street names, deal with frustrated riders, and take orders from a supervisor much younger than him. This was it. He was the puppet Nana Ya had described, answering to systems and schedules. But something strange happened. For the first time in his life, Kofi felt useful. At the end of his shift, sweaty and exhausted, he looked at the board and saw the numbers. Deliveries made, routes completed. He had played a part in something real. He wasn't selling ideas. He wasn't putting on a show. He was moving goods, helping people get what they needed. It was small. It was quiet. But it mattered. And for the first time, Kofi began to understand the dignity in simply showing up and doing the work. Months later, EkoDirect held its official public launch. It was more than just a corporate event. It was a celebration of Lagos's resilience. Government leaders, media, and business figures all gathered in a large public square. The choice of venue was symbolic. This company belonged to the people. At the center of the stage stood Amaugo, now the public face of a movement he had never set out to lead. In his speech, Amaugo hardly mentioned himself. Instead, he talked about the market women, the artisans, and the dispatch riders, the real heroes as he called them. He even brought some of them onto the stage, giving them credit and sharing the spotlight. It was a rare moment in Lagos. A powerful man who used his platform not to elevate himself, but to uplift others. Kofi stood at the back of the crowd in his EkoDirect uniform. He was part of the team coordinating logistics for the event. Watching Amaugo speak, he felt no envy, only admiration. For the first time, he truly understood what leadership meant. It wasn't about position or prestige. It was about service, community, and building something that outlived you. As Amaugo ended his speech to a roar of applause, he scanned the crowd. His eyes found Kofi. For a brief second, their gaze met. Amaugo gave a small nod. It wasn't a nod of triumph or of pity. It was one of respect. A quiet acknowledgement of where they had come from, and how far they had both grown. Kofi nodded back. The prophecy had come true. But not as they expected. And somehow that made it even more powerful. In the years that followed, EkoDirect became one of Africa's biggest success stories. Other cities looked to Lagos to learn from what Amaugo had built. But even with all the fame and growth, Amaugo stayed grounded. He still visited markets, spent time in the warehouses, and spoke directly with vendors. He didn't lead from behind a big desk. He led from the ground, close to the people. His true wealth wasn't measured in money, but in how many lives his work had helped improve. Kofi, on the other hand, stayed committed to his new path. He took his job seriously and learned everything about logistics, not from books or meetings, but by doing the hard work day after day. The charm he once used to impress became a tool for teamwork and encouragement. He slowly earned respect, not for who he used to be, but for who he had become. He was promoted, first to shift supervisor, then to warehouse manager. Each step was earned, not handed to him. The progress was steady, not flashy. But this time it was real. He no longer chased a title or a dream of greatness. He simply showed up, worked hard, and took pride in honest labor. And in that, he found a kind of peace and purpose that his old life had never given him. Kofi and Amaugo were no longer close friends. Their lives had taken different directions. But there was respect between them now. Sometimes Amaugo would drop by the warehouse, and they'd exchange a few quiet words, not as boss and employee, but as two men who had walked a long, strange road. Both had been changed by a prophecy, but it was their choices that had shaped their destinies. Many years later, Kofi had become the director of regional logistics at EkoDirect. It was a senior role, earned through years of dedication and growth. One day, while visiting Ikoyi for a meeting, something pulled at him. A quiet urge to find out if Nana Ya was still around. She was. He booked an appointment and once again found himself in her calm, elegant office with a wide view of Lagos, the city he had helped rebuild. Nana Ya looked exactly the same. Her eyes still held that quiet, mysterious wisdom. "I've thought about your prophecy every day for the past 15 years, Kofi said, his voice full of emotion. "You told me I'd be a CEO. I lost everything. You told Amaugo he'd be a puppet, and he became a king. Were you wrong?" There was no anger in his voice, just a deep need to understand. Nana Ya gave a small, knowing smile. "Prophecy isn't fact," she said softly. "It's a reflection of the energy you carried in that moment. That day your energy was all about status, the title. You wanted to be a CEO. Amaugo's energy was about the process, the work. He had accepted being a cog in the system." She paused, then added, "Life responds to energy. You chased a crown, but you didn't build the work to carry it. So life gave you a place to learn it, from the bottom. Amaugo, on the other hand, focused on serving others. He didn't seek a crown, but because of what he built, the crown found him." Kofi sat quietly, letting the words sink in. For the first time he fully understood. The prophecy had never been a promise. It had been a mirror. Kofi finally understood. The prophecy had never been about job titles or status. It was a personal challenge, one that asked both him and Amaugo to define what true success really meant. He had once believed that power came from titles, from being in charge. But now he knew, true power comes from what you build and the lives you impact. Amaugo had known this, even when life seemed stacked against him. He focused on building something real. And power found him. "The true throne," Nana Ya said gently as she looked over the city, "isn't found in a corner office. It's found in your ability to serve others. The true king is the one who lifts people up, not the one who sits above them. Amaugo built something that served thousands, and that's why people follow him. You, Kofi, learned how to serve that system. And in doing so, you found your own strength. You both fulfilled the prophecy," she added. "You just had to walk through each other's path to discover your own." Kofi left her office with peace in his heart. The pride, regret, and confusion he had carried for so long were gone. All that was left was clarity and gratitude. He returned to EkoDirect with fresh purpose. He was still a cog in the machine. But now he understood. It was a machine that served the people of Lagos, and that gave his role deep meaning. And in the heart of the city, Amaugo kept leading, not like a king but like a gardener. He tended to what he had planted, making sure it stayed strong, and that others could grow too. The story of Kofi and Amaugo quietly spread across the city. A modern tale with an old truth. Destiny isn't something you're given. It's something you build, one choice at a time. Thank you for watching. Let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and share one lesson you took from today's story. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this, and tap the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we drop a new story.